capitalism, all of the gains in automation, it goes to the owner class. All you have to do is have everyone be an owner, and now suddenly any gain in automation is a gain for everybody. If you grow just one thing, it may not grow as well as if it grows with another thing. A good example of that is called the Three Sisters method of farming.
There is definitely multi apartment buildings or multifamilies that do passive design.
$100 million that they gave to Joe Rogan that they would kind of be out if they breach contract. Is that a bigger number, or is 2 billion a bigger number?
I don't know,
It's
Zach.
a tough
This
one,
is
I know,
really hard.
and maybe
Yes.
comparing numbers is not Jeremy's strong suit. Gotta go kill a Jenny.
I still don't think you should kill her.
The Albany Greens, Albany County Green Party. I'm Miss Peachy. So what we you were working on a project before, which why we're starting. We only gotta have an hour. Linear. Uh, right. If you got want it done right, you gotta do it yourself. And if it's gotta be linear, then I actually found there was a good sort of leftist guy, left Huber guy, who made this sort of pretty simple diagram. He just simply used two lines. Um, I wrote down a note of it, but it was essentially like, a an economics line and a culture line, and to say that, like, look, this is the spectrum in America, and then this is the spectrum culturally. Not a political compass two-way, just two lines. I think the whole like eight axis test is better than the square of the political compass because these axes are independent of each other, more or less. And particularly to point out that liberals are just as right wing economically, they're just left wing culturally, but otherwise. And then the left, you know, economically speaking, politically speaking. Oh no, actually no, they just put it. He just put it as not economic. Yeah, economically with many versus few owning, and then culturally, which was like order versus not disordered, but decentralized, I guess. Ordered being hierarchical. Sure. Let's do a political spectrum review. I'm hearing you okay. And why I look so small, the camera's in the same place that it's always been. Yeah, as usual, my friend's searching bread theory, but of course, if you don't put channel with it, then you just get bread videos. You don't get bread theory. So there's a hot tip. Yes, sure.
that on there.
For any
Nice.
potential viewers, I'll just start regaling them. I was watching an interesting, well, for an
Hopefully that
outdoorsy person
works.
like me, it was a guy doing a challenging video where he follows the Thames in England
Uh-huh.
from head to sea, source to sea, without leaving it.
Oh,
And or rather, he can only progress if he's in the river.
that's
So he
cool.
can leave, but he has to go back in immediately where he uh, stepped out. So the first few days of this were by foot. Like he has a kayak parked at a particular spot where he kind of knows that the river actually is wide or deep enough for a kayak. But until that point, it's a stream, so he's just wading through it. But there's certain sections it's just brambles, and since he can't step out to progress, he is just I feel his pain because I've canoed such flows where it's really hard to progress, but at least you just portage around it, or
Sure.
you just a lot of
Yeah.
fallen
Yeah,
trees, and so like he had this really nice waterproof backpack, and probably I would like to have something like that
definitely. That
to do
sounds
more
cool.
canoeing, but man, but he went through this village, and it's just like again, he's not leaving. So any bridge, he has to go under it. So some of these bridges, the clearance is only like a foot or two, um, or it's like he's literally shimmering under it, because it's going through. It's just the Thames is literally just this like 4 foot wide stream channel, that you could
Mm-hmm.
wade in. But at the same time, it's like he didn't properly wear good sandals. He didn't get proper sandals beforehand. His sandals were falling apart as soon as he started. It was so comical because he's actually telling people, like, yeah, I actually don't know what I'm doing. I barely know how to kayak. And he's going to kayak the entire Thames River. And then when he gets he's going to hit the point where it turns into a tidal river. And he's just like, I'll deal with that. I'll deal with that when I get to it. So this
Wow.
guy is a mad lad. Um, and when he's served like food by people on the way, it really is just a bowl of beans.
Yeah. Okay. Bowl of
Those
beans.
Brits and their beans.
They love their
Uh,
beans, man. Beans and toast. It's like I don't know.
yeah.
It's like a chicken nuggets and fries or something.
But as someone who's done his fair share of canoeing in tight spaces and wading through when he was like without a good shoe, like he was just like hurting his feet on all the rocks and stuff. It's like, oh yeah, the gravel, the floor bed of the creek. I'm like, oh yeah, I've been there. I felt that. I felt that. Fun videos. Good time waster though, I guess.
For sure.
So there was the J20 rally I spoke at yesterday. I'll find a proper way of sharing the video. But I guess what I'm trying to puzzle out and sort of just not handling the last 5 days is what do I do with my short video posting? Trump has brought back TikTok, or at least the TikTok ban was only in effect for about a day and a half.
Yeah.
I was sort of waiting out to see how that shook out before doing another video. So it's been a week. We're doing my readings of the Green Party platform. And of course, I have a friend who kind of not fully criticizing me. He is liking them, but he's like, you do better numbers if it's a topic of playing that you read a policy that's related to something going on. But I'm like, well, everything's always going on. All I have to do is hashtag it and people hopefully will see it. But lately, I'm only getting 100 views per video, even as I'm going to the foreign policy section. But again, I'm talking about demilitarization overall. Eventually, like a few more videos, I'll get to Palestine. But and I guess he's saying just do the Palestine video now, right? But it's tough to find exactly what policy I should be reading on any particular day because it's not like the national news zeitgeist news is exactly what a green, like I could relate it to a green policy, but again,
Sure.
going through the long document that is the book length platform is a chore. And I don't think my friend is aware of that, just like how long it is and like how long I would like to find the right policy. I guess I could do a word search via the web. browser. But again, it's just like I'd rather just go in order. But do I go to Red Note? Do I go to YouTube and make these videos and try my luck just putting enough tags to see if it goes anywhere? I don't think it would, but do I go to Threads or any other Meta-owned place? Instagram. Instagram has short videos, but I never see videos longer than like a GIF. Like a 10-second thing.
Sure.
Vine. At least on TikTok, like I could record something that's like 8 minutes and it actually gets like 100 or so views. And meanwhile, I'm reading sort of a visual novel called Psycho Colonials about a down and out Instagrammer who has a rich friend and they live in Nantucket, but she's at her rock bottom and she gets drunk and in self-defense shoots a cop.
Oh, wow.
Kills a cop, actually, and dumps the police cruiser in the ocean and basically like starts her own clown-based movement.
Clown-based movement.
Because when she was having a nervous breakdown, she wrote a political manifesto called the Jubilite Manifesto.
Okay.
And she came up with the idea of praxis, which is pranks and praxis put together. And so, and one of her pranks, the first prank she's going to pull is stealing like $1 billion from the parents of her rich friend, with her help, of course, by doing a cryptocurrency scam of sorts.
Of course.
Put your cryptocurrency, because they're worried about the economy. This is written in 2020, so I'm only 2 chapters in, but it's fascinating.
That sounds cool.
From the mind of someone who's like a little bit juggalo, a little bit K-pop. Anyway, so
funny.
So I got lots of videos, of course, in the bank since, but I've been cutting a few that aren't relevant.
Cool. I cannot get my PowerPoint to open. It's too large of a file. I have it.
Really?
Well, okay. So I'm
too much politics.
It's too much politics. Well, it's like 110 slides at this point. So it's a large one.
Are you gonna keep the kids' attention that way?
Well, I'm gonna do it in sections. I've been doing it. I've been giving it to them in sections. We got up to representative democracy, and that's where we left off. So
are you just doing it? Sorry. Are you just doing it in lectures, or are you doing also sort of activities?
Yeah, they got some guided notes, but I don't really have any activities that I've developed with it yet. I'm just trying to get through the whole thing. So we literally have 2 days left in the semester, and I don't think we're gonna make it because we have other stuff to cover and the semester to wrap up. So, but
do you have required curriculum you have to hit?
Not exactly. It's just kind of whatever we get through.
I think it would be more valuable to do some like in the classroom mock, if not a mock election or two. But like there's I hear
we did that, yeah, for sure.
Activities where it's like a mock campaign where everybody is assigned. Or maybe you were the one explaining.
We did that, yeah. So I had them all come up with their own political party and platforms and investigate what real political parties stand for. We did like the 7 parties that appeared on ballots throughout the nation.
I'd also suggest like facilitation workshop, not work like the work activities for facilitation workshops or consensus workshops, which usually could amount to breaking up into mini groups of 5 and say you have $100 to spend. Now, in your own way, figure out how you would decide right now how to spend $100 amongst yourself. And then part 2 of that would be, now here's the steps for a consensus model. Now apply that, or just go through like, okay, how did you decide? And then relate how like what they did to different forms of governance. Did they do majoritarian? Did they?
How did they
be fair based on need?
How do they divvy up power? Yeah.
How do they divvy it up? Yeah.
I like that. That's something to think about. Fortunately, the political science part of the year is coming to an end. We're getting into
Mhm.
economics next, so
Mhm.
not
I
quite
remember in
as
high
fun.
school we were shown something of a Schoolhouse Rock equivalent of like economics of like the level where like God, the most capitalist brained of like currency came before everything else in the form of clams. Think of clams as currency
Clams. Oh
and the way
God.
people traded with each other and built an economy out of just doing stuff on their land. It's totally abstract and
Yeah.
ahistorical. To basically like design like this video of like a half an hour, and it was like it's like this is for like kids. Like where's the we're being treated like kids here, and of course I didn't respect it. So yeah, so open up that oh yeah, do you need the link from me?
Yeah.
Okay, hold
If
on.
it's in that
Well, it should just be my
on that
my
playlist there.
left field playlist.
Yeah, I can share that real quick then.
Hold on. I just added something about bricks to it. They're adding 2 new members in the last month.
Oh yeah, expands to 55% of the world's population. And Zizek and capitalism. All right. So you want the bricks one first?
No, the Carlin ones. Let's hit Carlin.
All
And I never
right.
have to think about her again. I probably will. I just can't.
Is it just
I'm
these two here?
Yeah, I'm just infatuated with her.
Proof the left wants to abolish your civil liberties.
So she has this basically speech of hers that like whenever she has to explain like to a new person in her chat.
But then there are other things.
Capitalism. She'll just kind of repeat this. This is different though. Where is it? Oh, okay. So this is okay. So her jam, her gimmick is that like she finds the proof of how crazy the left is, but also how destructive and how they're winning and how and she's very concerned with what real leftist activists are doing.
Gotcha.
Of which she means going to academic conferences. But she also sits on like organizing calls and so on, and she calls it like spy streaming, she calls it,
Yeah.
Because obviously she's not an activist. And trying to and then she sees this as journalism, muckraking. She's like her heroes are the Project Veritas creeps and Andy No, and she's friendly. She's on good terms with the Groypers, Nick Fuentes, the Groypers. She sees them as being cool or like avant-garde or like the counterculture, like they're creative, they're counterculture, because she's been like she has interest in zines and zine culture.
Sure.
She wants to create a library, an archive of zines. I'm like, honey, there's already a zine library in Toronto. I've been there. I've seen it. It's great. But it's funny because she was watching a doc about Toronto zine culture, or particularly like queercore.
And she just didn't come across that particular piece of information.
Okay. And always, she never really explains why anything's bad. It's sort of taken for granted that
for sure
we want to destroy society, and society's great somehow. But everyone's sort of like, I don't know, just general reactionary tone. So let's hit her.
Okay. By the way, is your friend that you were talking about earlier David Spenziero?
That's him.
Okay.
Hi, Dave.
He was in the chat, but it looks like he's gone to Pac-Man at 9:00 your time, I assume. So, missed him. But yeah, let's take a look at the video here.
He just shared Office of Gun Violence Prevention. I don't know what that text means, but I think it's just 404. I think it means like he was.
Well, they've been taking stuff off the White House website at a pretty rapid clip. So
Oh, okay. I see.
they
Yeah.
took away like all the Spanish language stuff. They took away the
Yeah.
Constitution page that just had the Constitution on it. A bunch of crap. Yeah.
They're cutting the government, and you got to start somewhere.
They're trimming the fat.
Trimming the fat. The Constitution is the fat. It's gristle. It's a little gristle.
All right. Well, let's watch this video.
Things that also mark what constitutional support is all about. So another key component is a commitment to anti-totalitarian civil liberties. The thought that what the Constitution does is it protects a sphere of individual rights, speech, freedom of exercise when it comes to religion, but just the autonomy of the individual from various types of state infringement. It's a civil libertarian set of guarantees embodied probably most concretely by the Bill of Rights, those first 10 amendments. And moreover, these civil liberties are themselves tied inherently, because they're negative liberties, negative protections against the state, to economic liberties. In other words, even though it might be perfectly reasonable to have various types of constraints on economic power, so some degree of management of the economy, there's a bedrock presumption that property rights, and by extension market capitalism, is connected to civil liberty. So that...
Oh, she paused it.
Oh, you can pause too, though.
Okay.
Definition.
So for context, so she has in the left corner here, this is the Revolutionary Socialists in Seattle, or maybe that she's calling it that. But the panel discussion is the constitutional bind. The guy talking, Aizan Rana, is a law professor at Boston. And this is during one of her Socialism Saturday streams, where she just watches and reacts to some panel discussion of academics who are saying things that most of the time goes over her head.
Yeah.
In this case, she's making this one of her premier videos because she quite at least understands the point that's being made. But keep in mind, out of an hour-long panel discussion, this is probably one of the few things she actually understands or pulled out, because she can exploit this and mine this. And this is an example of her making a video and monetizing it.
Right.
To point out the lefties do want to destroy the government and the Constitution, because they believe, or at least this one does, this law professor, points out that bourgeois civil liberties are tied to property rights and capitalism.
Yep.
Now that's not all the Bill of Rights is, and all the
For sure.
a leftist could also argue the opposite, that the Bill of Rights is the only part of the Constitution that isn't capitalist. But the bind is that there's reactionaries in the right will use the Constitution or the Bill of Rights to argue for property rights and their dominance. And so the bind is like, well, do we play on their terms and argue against the Constitution, or do we argue that the Constitution is more about civil rights and civil liberties outside of property?
Yeah, I don't see why we can't do both. Just say, hey, this part sucks, but we like this part. You can always amend the Constitution. So, it's not as though that it has to be a static thing and an all or nothing proposition.
But Carlin is a binary thinker,
of course.
And so when she hears any leftist explaining something or stating something, she's sort of like, left believes that this is because anything's influential to her. And so she's sort of when a leftist announces states a position, even for the sake of arguing about it, or whether or not they really believe it, she takes it at face value as something a leftist believes.
Yeah. Just kind of like the Tim Pool method of reading comprehension. You just seize on the first thing that fits your agenda, and that's the truth now.
Because the next sentence could be, and that's why that's bullshit.
Yeah, right.
But she doesn't acknowledge it. Not that she isn't read or listened to by her chat, but it's just not acknowledged. And that's what's frustrating if I'm watching her stream or whatever. is the non-acknowledgement of anything that counters whatever she's spewing.
Right.
Even if she understands what a leftist is saying, it's how she understands it, which is terrible.
Right on. All right, let's keep going.
That the left has of capitalism is private property ownership. It is very, very explicit. When the left says capitalism, they are not talking about crony capitalism. They're not talking about corrupt capitalism. They're not talking about corporatism. They're not talking about any of the problems that most people see with capitalism. They're talking explicitly about private property ownership. When they say private property ownership, they are making a reference to bourgeois property. That means property that can be used to generate personal private wealth. Okay? And so,
AKA the basis for capitalism. So I don't know why she's making all these distinctions here.
Well, most of her thing is that she doesn't make distinctions. That she's trying, in her way of trying to understand Marxism, is to actually condense everything into just, when we say anything, we mean capitalism.
I see. Okay.
And when we talk about civil liberties or property, we're just talking about all property.
I see.
She sort of extrapolates, but also is condensing, because she sees enough leftist talks that will throw in, and sometimes it's just the rhetoric of saying imperialism, colonialism, racism, and capitalism in the same paragraph, and she's left to conclude, like, I think they're talking about just all those words just mean the same thing. Especially as she then delves into, say, she reads a post-colonial theory, and it's about how capitalism is exploitative. So it's like, oh, when they say colonialism, they mean capitalism.
Gotcha.
And so, like, she condenses it all together, so her audience, their small brains can or rather limited imagination, can comprehend it.
I see.
Or rather, they don't quite go with that. And so she has to argue with them all the time and sort of bang it in their heads. And she just repeats what she's got to go through here.
That's funny.
So when they say private property, they mean your ability to own a home, your ability to own land,
so here's the
your ability
conflation.
to own an apartment that you rent out as a landlord, your ability to own intellectual property, your ability to own a private business, whether that private business be big or small, and your parental rights over your children are considered to be a form of private property, because parental rights gives you the ability to pass your private property to your son or daughter so that they maintain generational wealth. It's also about the nuclear family upholding capitalism. That's another thing they're interested in. But one of the things that we don't often hear them talk about, but we do hear them say every now and again, individual liberties are considered to be a form of private property. Your individual liberties, the things protected by the Constitution, are considered to be a form of private property that they want to abolish when they...
I don't think I've ever heard anyone, left, right, center, apolitical, call civil liberties private property.
Well, here's where her reading or listening comprehension is shown to be completely shot. She just heard this law professor mention civil liberties and property ownership in the same minute.
I see.
And so she's putting those things together as leftists believe that civil liberties are like property. This is where she goes off the deep end, because everything else she said is based in some form of semi-Marxist theory. You know, the whole children are like property because in the bourgeois family, children are treated like property. So parental rights are a type of property ownership, or at least they're like it. But she takes that as a literalism. That, like, when we talk about how children are treated like property, treated like, as in they're not literally property, but when a right winger is saying my child is my child, and you have no right to teach them something outside of what I want them to teach. That's like saying this is my property, where you gotta respect it. So she's sort of taking that right-wing stance of like property is the same as my rights.
Okay.
And so undermining that or critiquing it or even saying something is like a property relationship is like attacking my rights.
I see. That makes a
We
little
can really kind of look into the right-wing mind with this.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I like it, is that she's exploring this facet of like the putting how they put pieces and understandings together in a way that the people that we sort of can make fun of who can't define woke,
Mhm.
you know, we don't know what they're really going on about or how they're putting pieces together in their head. It just comes off as like nonsense. But with her streams and the fact that she's sort of trying to understand leftist theory, or at least pretending to, I think I'm able to see like how they were trying to put 2 and 3 together.
I see.
But yeah, she listed all those things, and of course, as a capitalist, she never has to justify how intellectual property is somehow good and natural, or something that needs to be protected. How being able to be a landlord is something moral and just and this. Like,
Yeah.
she's just
We're
like
just
it's
taking
taken
for
for
granted.
granted.
Yeah.
She never has to argue about it. Any leftist that she's listening to like argues about how it's dumb, it's exploitative, it's unjust. Doesn't need to debunk any of it. Just thinks it's crazy to even think like, you know, it's a problem at all. But never argues how it isn't a problem. It's just taken for granted.
You're right.
Sort of in the same way, I guess we don't have to explain to any of our audience or people who come in, oh, hierarchies are bullshit.
Yeah.
You know, do we have to go through it all? I mean,
Yeah.
But no, her way of like, we don't debunk things because otherwise her chat is just filled with kind of the kind of trolls that show up here sometimes, where they just want to say, oh, these dumb leftists are crazy. Never listening to a word of it, you know. Never trying to like put together like, hey, maybe they have a point. But there's tons of times where like her audience should be gelling with what they're saying,
Uh-huh.
but they never acknowledge any of it. Only, you know, they don't even acknowledge it's crazy because she doesn't like that. It's so weird. It's such an odd space.
Yeah. Fascinating though.
Because any other right-wing space would be just about how crazy the left is, and let's leave it at that.
Right.
Trolling.
Yeah, and they would encourage the, you know, pep rally
kind
of just our team good, their team bad sort of
Right.
stuff.
They abolish capitalism. They consider the United States Constitution to be a capitalist document. They consider the United States government to be the capitalist U.S. government. What we just heard this boss.
I mean, both those things are literally true. That's how our nation was set up, for the benefit of the capitalist class, and Constitution along with that. You know, we have the right to life, liberty, and property. So those things are true. There's a nugget of truth in what she's saying.
Always is. Well, like her stance, though, I mean, the point of it is that like this is good, and and she's trying to convince her audience, or rather, just show her audience. So this is where she can be honest, or at least it's correct to say this, that like, yeah, we want to tear down the government, or we're not like for the Biden administration. We hate it just as much. Like, she's just trying to get her audience or anyone attracted to her just to understand that lefties are not the same as liberals.
Okay.
So like, because her audience are like, you know, liberals of TikTok watchers.
Ugh.
And she's trying to expose them to actual leftist thought and thinking, or just that these leftist revolutionaries actually do want to overturn the government, not just, you know, but they're doing it through trans politics.
Something just sticks with me with that. Like, okay, so she's trying to go beyond just, you know, the facile, blue hair bad sort of rhetoric.
Right.
But she's not actually trying to understand the root of what we're saying. Like, I think about how I'm interested in what right-wing libertarians actually think and why they actually think it. I argue with them online to try to figure out what the hell they're getting after, because I actually want to know.
I think if you dig enough, like it can.
It's
It's.
just-
I think what she's missing with her like a deep analysis. She just wants to focus on what lefties are doing and the ideology that influences our like activism and organizing. She doesn't want to understand, or doesn't want her audience to understand, why we believe what we believe, because what the source of that is like stats and material reality.
right.
So she's not watching leftist. She's not watching second thought videos, or the videos that left tubers make about material reality and how it relates to Marxist
just-
thinking. She's just watching panels about Marxist thinking.
Sure, no. It's just a strange line to stop at. Like, why not just give them the right wing slop that they love from every other channel then? If like really all you're doing is wanting them to dislike leftist thought, to, you know, hear one word and assume another that's
Well, that's
obviously negative.
It's a
It's a-
competition, and she needs to offer something different. And
I
that way,
guess.
her products are different than her competitors, because she can say, "I've been studying leftists for 3 years now, longer than any of you have even been politically active or engaged." You know, like she talks like, "I've been doing this for 4 years. I've sat through
Just old
hundreds of
veteran.
hours of leftist theory," as if like this is the equivalent of a college degree or something.
Yeah.
And it's like, "I'm so well educated. I understand it all. I'm here to educate you. I'm your teacher, and I have books, and I have this, and I have things you can buy from me." You know, and so it's, and then she's got shit to sell. So that's why. But it's sort of, it's
I
just
guess
such
so.
a
It's just
different
an interesting. It's an interesting niche, I guess.
And again, I found this because she put socialism in her, you know, video
In the title,
titles
yeah.
and so,
Okay,
so on.
fair enough.
So it came up when I was
Yeah.
like, going through socialist videos.
It's a way to kind of catch people that are interested and pull them in the direction she wants.
Yeah, because otherwise, you know, you get a lot of like, if you type in just socialism in YouTube, you just get like, I don't know, 50 videos bashing like, why is socialism wrong?
Yeah.
Why is it, you know,
Yeah,
it's all right wing. And maybe you get something like something left to be.
Sure.
All
right. Well, let's
let's keep going.
Yeah, let's keep going.
Boston College constitutional law professors say is that everyone admits that there might be some benefits to having a managed economy. A managed economy means socialism. But the thing that prevents us from being able to have a managed economy is the Constitution protects property rights and civil liberties. He's pitting individual liberties against the so-called benefits of having a managed economy in a socialist world. Does everyone understand this? We're going to listen to it again, but I
So-called
want to make
benefits,
sure
he
people
says.
understand what they're listening to. If you have questions, please ask them. If you understand it, please put yes in the chat so that I know you understand. But if you have questions, there's no shame in asking questions. I'll explain it again. But we're going to listen to this again. I just want you
explain
to
it
make
again
sure
the
that
exact
you
same
know
way.
what you're...
Like the worst
I will-
math teacher.
I will
ever.
repeat it
Like,
again. Yes.
Yes. He does not repeat it differently.
Do you ever actually tune into her live shows then? Like, get in the comment section? That would be
Well,
an
I would
interesting
think
experiment.
I have to be paying to get in the chat. But I
Oh,
do.
really? Does she have it gate kept that way somehow?
I'll have to
Okay.
look. Most people do, by the way, that any channel does, to be a member. I'll have to look. No, I'm pretty sure I would have commented already if I could. Or I'm always watching it like ahead of time. Like, sorry, I'm behind.
Sure.
Like I'm coming in live, but I'll rewind it to the first when she starts.
See where she started from.
content.
Figure out why the hell
Yeah.
she got where she got.
Whatever, you know.
Oh,
Because I need to know what they're talking about. Or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
But again, when I'm listening to her live or whatever, I'm doing something else. I'm
I
not
see.
really like gonna live in the comment section.
It'd just be interesting to see if she would even acknowledge a real comment or question.
I don't know. I mean, she would mention in the past like she had a pet socialist.
Mm,
So there would be like she had a member who was a socialist who was there to bounce questions off of,
sure.
or they'd be there to like confirm, like maybe they were an ex-socialist and they're like, yeah, I can confirm it's like this. They're like this. But actually, no, they weren't a fake socialist probably because they would argue with her. They would try to correct her, and then she would ban them.
Oh, okay.
So
I guess
she
that
only
answers
wanted,
that.
she really did want a pet socialist, a socialist who was like
She wanted an incompetent
there
pet
to be
socialist.
there
Yeah.
to be bashed.
Right.
And so like obviously anyone who's like in that position is not going to stick around long.
For sure.
And so when I was sort of thinking of offering myself as like, oh yeah, I could be your socialist to
Yeah,
bounce off
yeah,
of.
there
But
you
like
go.
she would probably hate me.
Oh, yeah.
She would hate, like, I don't know. Well, especially since like I just have to live in their comments and just be part of the throng. And I'm like,
Sure.
no, I'm not. I don't need to be an equal here, like the way we're talking. But it's sort of odd. Like she interviewed actually. She had on her stream. She did a stream once with some communists, but they're the type of anti-woke kind who were
Oh, God.
not the American communists, but
Similar
the
to like a Pat Sock.
yeah, or the what group are they? Oh, I think it's the Revolution. No, it wasn't Revolutionary Communist Party. What group? Oh, like the Midwestern Marx guys.
Oh, okay.
Those groups, which are okay on a note, like when you're watching them for a bit, but then when they start talking about like identity politics or whatever, they just come off as cringy, like anti-woke people. Because it's like they're confusing corporate wokeness with any intersectionality. It's
yeah.
it's so
They can't
odd.
separate the direction
so-
that the Pepsi rainbow ad is coming from. They think that
Yeah,
that is
they think
wokeness, and wokeness is it.
in order to appeal to anyone who's a centrist, they have to like not be intersectional. If you talk intersectionality, that scares them off, that triggers them. So
It's just
you
so
can't
not
be
true,
rational
though.
about it. It's very immature. That's what it comes off as. And they are under 30. And so it also comes from the fact that they're always online. Like they're not doing on the ground activism because otherwise people tell them to fuck off. Their movement is completely online based because
Yeah.
otherwise what are they doing? It's an educational project, which is fine, but
Mhm.
no, yeah. It's sort of odd.
Gotcha. All right. Well, let's continue on. I want to make sure we have time for
Maybe
more
skip
than
ahead a
one.
minute because I
Sure.
don't know how much of this is her like. Yeah, she'll have her
Blah,
chat
blah,
chime
blah,
in.
blah. Let's see.
Because it is exactly what real socialists are
Oh
teaching
yeah,
in
so
the
this
real world.
is what irks me about her stream. Someone will actually ask a pretty like legitimate question that I would love to answer, but because she's a pig brain, she'll answer it in the way that she like misunderstands. So she'll just double down on her interpretation, and so where people like her audience are clearly confused by how she interprets things and how she's like displaying things. But it's a study group of right-wingers leading right-wingers about left-wingers. And
The definition that
Sorry.
we don't do that. You know, I'm never in a leftist study group and we're like reading the National Review.
Yeah. Well, there's, if you're actually organizing, there's just no time for study. I mean, it's good to study your opposition, but like having an entire study group about it, what's
Yeah.
what's really the point, I guess.
That's why I don't want to devote too much of my energy or time into at this. I'm just like,
It's just fun though. It's fun.
casual pop in
Yeah.
when once a month because that's all I'll take is like enough of this and I get really like I'm not hate listening to anything.
Yeah.
So the case with like One Dime had this guy on he was interviewing a guy who was really pissing me off. His preview little minutes were like the worst. And I'm like, well, this preview makes me want to listen to no more of him.
Yeah.
It does the opposite effect of wanting me to listen, getting me to listen to more. Because I think he was like an ANCAP who's become a lefty, but like it's purely through the online, politics. So again, it misunderstands like why activists talk the way they do about intersectional issues.
That's right. You heard it, folks. Read your theory. Don't actually do organizing. Don't just rely on the don't just rely on this channel to get all of your views.
Or any online
channel. It's never going to be the full picture.
It's supplementary,
Yeah, right.
Rather, like, remember that like it was always this is a reminder from another leftist channel. It was social networking, not social media. Before social media, it was social networking. It was
That's
a tool
true.
for networking with people you already knew,
Right.
or things you already interacted with.
Right.
And then eventually, once it's commercialized, it becomes media.
Oh, that's very subtle. I never really picked up on that, but you're definitely right.
Neither did I.
did
That's
make
why
that
it was
shift.
like, that struck me as, oh, that's a good line.
That is a good line. I like it.
And that's why, like, I stay sane on Facebook, or I keep using it only for networking as much as I can use it for networking.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I am kind of scrolling, not so much doom scrolling. I've liked enough pages now where when I'm scrolling, it's actually things I find cute or funny.
Yeah.
And not angering or things that will suck me in.
Sure. Yeah, I'm mostly on Facebook for the memes at this point.
Dumb time waster. Well, again, sometimes memes annoy me enough where it's like I'm wasting time looking at memes.
Oh, absolutely.
But if it's like little web comics or the thing with the beings. Anyway.
All right.
I've given you is the
Marx have
definition
the
that we
same
hear
definition of
socialist
private property,
activists say
or is
over
this
and
a gain
over and
of
over and
function
over and over
definition?
again. It doesn't matter if Marx specifically said this. People need to get out of this mindset that if Marx didn't say it, it doesn't mean anything. Guys, what we listen to are
She hasn't read
real
Marx,
world socialist activists today. We're not going back and reading the philosophies of dead people from 200 years ago. We are
She would
listening
understand
to
leftist
real.
if she did, but because
So that's why she can't.
she's skipping to step E,
Yeah.
leftist today,
Leftist
trying
today.
to understand what they're talking about.
Uh-huh.
And of course, like I wouldn't think it made it. Like if I didn't know all I know,
Mhm.
I would think they were a bunch of crackpots too.
Sure. I mean, I thought that for a number of years. I was like, oh, they're just a bunch of purists. Nothing's ever good enough for them. Like, all they want to do is tear stuff down. And that's before I really knew anything about it.
But that's not the way any of them talk.
No. Yeah.
World socialist activists today. They are telling you what they believe today. Whether or not that is reflective of something specifically that Marx wrote has no relevance at all. Because Marx is not dictating the actions and the teaching and the strategies of real-world socialist activists today.
It is dictating
So it
how the
doesn't
professor
matter.
is talking about property and civil rights, though.
Yeah, absolutely. It is.
It's dictating that.
Yeah, you think that guy hasn't studied the theory and hasn't informed his position by it? Like, come on.
Definition of private property that I gave you is the definition that I've heard real socialists in the real world say time and 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 time again. I have clips of this on my channel. I have clips of it in my Substack. It's something that I've covered ad nauseum over the course of 3 years. So I personally, no offense, don't give a flying flip if Marx ever said this specifically, because it is exactly what real socialists are teaching in the real world today. That is what they believe. That is what lives on in the people that are doing it now. Old philosophy doesn't matter if it's not being implemented in the real world now. Is he saying individual rights and by extension the Constitution? Yes. That is explicitly what he's saying, Kyle. He is saying that individual rights, individual
It's
liberties
sort of an
are a
edgelord
form.
take. I mean, a leftist can like believe or say this, but it's usually kind of I put in the edgelord category
Sure.
of like being essentialist about like, well, capitalism, the Constitution is purely a capitalist document, which is kind of essentialist way of talking about it. In the same way of like, America was founded for slavery. I mean, in some ways, yes.
Yeah.
But to essentialize it as the 1614 Project does, that's what sort of makes it a liberal education project, and it's sort of essentializing,
I can see that.
sticking with identity and sort of ignoring the shift of colonial capitalism to imperialist capitalism.
For sure.
Form of private property ownership, and they believe the Constitution is a capitalist document, and they cannot over.
Okay.
Let's go back and listen again. And he like it's a little. You have to listen closely, but I want to make sure we get this. We're gonna go back a little ways.
But even though this is 15 minutes, it's really just 5 minutes of real content, because it's
yeah.
a good example of what her streams are like, because it's really this times 5, like 5 times over.
Yeah.
Taking 10 minutes to go through like a few minutes.
A couple minute
which
video.
sometimes is us.
Yeah, sure. But we're not just repeating the same thing again and again and again and again. And then
And again,
having someone, and then having someone comment and say, nope, I'm going to say it one more time or 2 more times. It's,
right. Yeah.
You know,
it's so frustrating listening
it's
to
a
it. So I
jumping
really
off
do.
point to talk about other things when we are pausing.
Okay.
For fulfilling those principles embedded in the Declaration. But then there are other things that also mark what constitutional support is all about. So another key component is a commitment to anti-totalitarian civil liberties. The thought that what the Constitution does is it protects a sphere of individual rights, speech, freedom of exercise when it comes to religion, but just the autonomy of the individual from various types of state infringement. It's a civil libertarian set of guarantees embodied probably most concretely by the Bill of Rights, those first 10 amendments. And moreover, these civil liberties are themselves tied inherently, because they're negative liberties, negative protections against the state, to economic liberties. In other words, even though it might be perfectly reasonable to have various types of constraints on economic power, so some degree of management of the economy, there's a bedrock presumption that property rights,
So when he says management
and
of
by
the economy,
extension market capitalism,
he's talking about liberal regulations, not socialism.
Sure.
That's something that goes over her head. He's not like, because she's heard other socialists mention managing the economy democratically, so she's just associating managed economy. That means socialism. But when he's saying, he prefaced with any regulation is a type of managing the economy, which is just Adam Smith 101.
Sure. And yeah, definitely is. So, okay. Moving on.
is connected to civil liberty. So that defending civil liberties means defending some brand of market capitalism, defending the Constitution, therefore connects creed to civil liberties, to market capitalism. And
Again,
all
he's
of that
describing the right wing
then
thing.
goes hand in hand with a vision of representative government that is supposed to be based on majority rule, but that is closely associated with constrained majoritarianism.
Okay. Now he's getting into the problem with overthrowing the current system, because he's saying that this idea that people have individual liberties is closely related to our form of government. We're going to get into that in a second. But did everyone hear him say that the idea of having that the idea of free market capitalism is linked to individual liberties in the Constitution, and we can't get a managed economy. Managed economy means socialism. We can't get a managed economy until we get rid of individual liberties in the Constitution. Did everyone hear him say that?
No. He did not say that. That's
Oh, look at
silly.
this.
He's
Look at this gem of a comment. You gotta read it? Okay. In other words, your ability to have a train of creative thought constitutes private property. These people are insane.
yeah. Well,
Where they pull that out?
where did they pull that from? I guess that's if freedom of speech then is tied to the Constitution, which is all about
Yeah. Or
property,
individuality, just
any
individuality.
sort of,
Yeah.
But like you said, he
Not-
was talking
Again,
about
they have to
view of the
compact everything
Constitution.
together. They have to compact everything together because it seems like the leftist is doing that,
But he was not.
but
even,
he's really just listing a bunch of stuff.
yeah. Well, yeah, and he's talking about people's view of the Constitution, not his own. Not.
Yeah, and he makes that clear earlier on. I think
Yeah.
I've watched this, not the whole panel, but more of it, or at least
But I mean,
some of
it's
the
just clear
or at
from
least
the
I know the
context,
context
too.
of what. Yeah, I know the context of what when a leftist is talking this way, they're talking in the context of talking about how, the general view of American society views the Constitution.
He's talking about how because
It's a critique. It's
because
critical. It's critical. It's a critical theory thing.
right.
He's taking what.
He's saying because these liberal values, which are not themselves capitalistic necessarily, are embedded into the same document that protects capitalism, people view them as one and the same, so that any attack on
There you go.
capitalism
On
is an attack
capitalism.
on liberalism, which it's not.
So that right, which is the pure ideology that is totally at work in the Carlin zone.
Mhm.
Like they are eating out of the garbage can. And so they're applying that to they're not seeing this as a critique of how they think. They're seeing it as just the opposite of what they think.
Yeah, they're saying it as a confirmation of what
opposition.
they think, and a confirmation that he's saying, yeah, these are bad things. They're tied together. They're one and the same, and we got to destroy it, which he's not saying.
And thus we have to just stop the leftists. And, the
Right.
communists.
Yeah.
Because we do think these things go together.
All right.
Which is,
do
that's what's great. That's what's
Do-
great about this.
you want to finish?
We can
this one
understand
out?
that better.
Sorry to cut you off. Do you want to finish this one out? Because we got 20 minutes left, and I really got to be done.
Yeah, let's
hold on.
move on to something that's only 5 minutes long and it's funny. Going down in my playlist, there's a Cars or Communism.
Yeah, let's watch that.
I don't know what the fuck this is like. It's sort of a joke, but I'm not.
What the heck
Wait,
happened?
is it?
Something
No,
went
that's
wrong
not
there.
it.
I clicked on it. There it goes.
It isn't meant to be parody, but it's not like clear how where its real politics lies. It's sort of that J-Reg kind of parody song.
Yeah.
So just
Gotcha.
leave it at that.
So it says, please, bro, one more lane. It's going to fix
The
traffic.
traffic.
They paved the way with money, built highways with our cash. All those roads and parking lots just burning up so fast. Yeah, they tell us it's our freedom, but the cost is running
I think it's
high.
working off of capitalism is when this government does stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of working off of that.
Yeah. That's what I'm
And
picking
since
up on.
car infrastructure is something the government has
It's
to
a
do,
collective effort. Yeah. So then it
It's a
must,
collective
must
effort.
therefore be
it's
communism.
communism.
it's communism.
And thus, liberal. Trains could do it.
We're
Yeah.
cheaper while we pay for every mile. 'Cause our communism, don't you see? They take our cash and call it free. But we're trapped in traffic, oh, can't you tell? As the taxes rise, we're stuck in a spell. Cause of communism, don't you know? Really love to know where woman profits don't show.
Communism is when no profit.
Spend a fortune on that license.
Communism is when I don't like something.
That's right.
Communism is when there's no profit,
There's no profit.
diminishing returns.
So if it was a toll road, then it becomes a capitalist road by default.
I guess I don't know.
Yeah.
Assets repairs, but in a world that's built for walking, wouldn't need to care. Could cycle through the city, take a train and catch a ride. But now I'm chained to pavers, can't escape, no place to hide. Cause of communism, don't be blind. Selling dreams they've left behind. All the money that we pour in, oh it's true. Could be lower where we're free to choose. Cause of communism, don't you see? Every street's a prison and they hold the key.
So you can just taking from the B-roll archive.
Yeah, I could tell.
Kind of goes on a little long though, 5 minutes, you know.
But you'll never turn a profit, just a driver on demand. In a liberal society, yeah, we all take a share. Every ride's a hustle, every mile goes somewhere. Cause of communism, wake up and see. Roads are built with money, nothing's really free. We are trotting in circles, paying the price while the trains roll on, rolling so nice. Cause of communism, they've got the plan. But we could change the way we travel, take a stand.
Another solo.
Yeah.
A little excessive.
It's a hard rocking song.
So, weird parody or reverse psychology?
I think it could be both, actually.
Oh wait, there's a second one.
Oh
Could
no.
you click that?
Marxism intensifies on this version. Hold onto your butts.
It's shorter, so this one I haven't seen.
Ooh.
Those are Jeff Toll.
Yeah.
That's Grease. They have cars in Cuba.
They sure do. What more do you want?
Play on and do it like to be a times again. Factories, mommy, build
communist cars. Rather, it's capitalist cars. At least it's a fucking AI voice.
At least what?
It's not an AI voice. Like somebody.
Yeah, someone
Sounds
actually
like
took
someone
the
did
time to
record
record
this.
this. Yeah.
So, but it's totally different than the first guy. So
No, it does not
this
have.
channel is weird.
This is a weird channel. What is this now? La Villa Nouvelle. Music and architecture.
So, I mean, that sounds like a meme channel because
Yeah.
I'll tell you, there are some Facebook pages with architecture and design, and like all the posts will be like not architecture,
Ah.
like it will be completely random, really confusing. So yeah, a song that's pro-state capitalist made cars or nationalized auto
I guess
industry.
they've had a change of heart just between the part 1 and part 2 that cars are
Yeah,
communism,
really-
but now
really
communism is the solution to cars. So.
Which
Or
is
okay.
partially I believe.
Sure.
Now, does that mean like I mean, again, the future of socialism is not going to be like nationalization. I mean, there's a certain line of thinking where like the corporatism is when it reaches its peak, we just nationalize all the corporations.
Yeah.
That's sort of similar to what happened in this transitionary stage with the Napoleonic Wars, where you had the corporations of colonialism, the Dutch East Trading Companies, but they were by the 1830s, and we're entering the next stage. They were going broke, and so they were nationalized, or rather, they were brought into crown ownership. Which is how like half of India became the British Empire for like overnight for some reason, because you had all of these holdings of the British East India Company, and they just got turned into crown land because they were broke. They were not profitable anymore. Or I'll have to reread that part, but that's the gist of it.
Yeah.
That they got subsumed by imperialist capitalism, which was free market imperialism. So it's not going to be controlled by corporations, but the imperial sector,
right,
being broken explanation. But so it probably means like, well, either I guess the future either is nationalization, but like I don't really see that happening. At least the movement isn't going there.
Sure.
We're doing that grassroots socialism.
Yeah.
But hell, I mean, before the Russian Revolution, it was all co-ops and unions and
communes,
some random revolutionary socialists, and then they took power because the crisis was big enough.
True.
Which with the BRICS video kind of gets me thinking, kind of optimistically, that like the 30-year crisis when the American system falls apart isn't going to be a big war. But the crisis will just be a shit ton of climate disasters, and that's like the big enemy. And then it's sort of like the BRICS wrestling control of the world hegemony away from the U.S. in that chaos. And maybe the U.S. fights them. We fight them somehow, but we'll probably be too busy with our own climate collapse. That the fight will not be between nation states, but it will be the corporate global governance versus climate disaster and all those compounding disasters. Slow rolling.
Who knows? Maybe between the tariffs and deporting as many people as possible, Trump will tank the economy enough to cause an artificial crisis.
Well, again, I'm thinking big. I'm thinking big, and I'm thinking long. I'm not thinking cycle to cycle. I mean, obviously, it's usually something. It's usually something small that like kind of gets things going.
Sure.
But at the same time, like again, it seems like it never could have happened until it happens, and then it was inevitable, like the world wars. In 1910, it was like everything's so freaking stable.
Right.
Everything's going great. Sure, we got some flare-ups in the Balkans, but
Yeah, nothing to worry
Britain's
about.
got Britain's got a lock, and the banking sector's doing as good. British banks are never been better. But yeah, and the same goes for, I guess, the U.S. system. That's I don't know. It's Trumpism is all about like how it's falling apart and like U.S. is readjusting, but it's also just repeating. At the same time, it's just repeating what the American system's always done. So in my mind, it's
True.
not really different. It's just sort of trying to double down.
Yeah, but
on what
is
works.
there any more gas left in the neoliberalism engine that you can just keep it trucking along?
No.
So,
No, because I mean, all of the tech bubbles, and this includes AI, is like adding sugar to that gas tank.
mhm.
Um,
Yeah, that's for sure.
because something that again it was the Skeptical Leftist, and they're doing book talks.
Mhm.
So, I mean, they're just a book club, and it was a 1968 essay or paper, but it was sort of talking about what the guy who's done his research was talking about, like AI is operating at a major loss. For every dollar of
Interesting.
revenue that AI generates, it costs $2. And
Interesting.
that doesn't include the water and power use.
Oh,
power
that's
use
even
is
before
probably-
water. What is the
But
cost
maybe-
then? Just
or
to
the power-
develop the
or the
algorithm?
power use, or rather, the power use is part of that cost.
Oh,
But it's
that I would
basically
believe, for sure.
it's operating at a half, 100% loss.
Interesting.
And so he's actually sort of saying like, hey, use AI more actually, because it's
Yeah,
it's
especially
both
the
increasing the stock value, I suppose, but it's also costing Google billions, or if enough people are using AI. And I guess eventually it becomes like, I don't know, maybe like a matter of scale, where like if enough people are using AI, then it becomes cheaper.
maybe, but there's still just, I mean, there's just physical limitations to it with the amount of computing
Yeah.
power that it takes up.
He also mentions that because being Tech Valley being in the West and all that
Yeah.
they should be building all of these server farms in cold places, but they keep
Yeah.
building them in hot places.
Uh-huh.
Which reminds me of the big NSA, big super data farm from all the data they collect is in Utah, or it was being planned
Makes a
on
lot more
building
sense.
there. And that was during the Obama years. So it's like that was one of those, like, the infrastructure of terror and tyranny is being built no matter who's president.
Mhm.
And so you just have these flashes of bad news that gets everyone's attention. Musk's hailing, or Trump's executive orders. I mean, I think it's getting it all out of the way, because I'm not sure what else he's going to be able to do. Similar to his first term, it was all sort of for show. I mean, there'll be another terrible, shitty tax plan in effect for the next 6 years. There'll be another shitty, lack of infrastructure bills or federal funding for anything.
Yeah.
So that's what you get when you vote Democrat. You get some federal funding for some things, like rebuilding a bridge here and there. Meanwhile, New York is like our state of the state was all about, like, money being, all these increased funding, but not really for everything, because she's also doing our governor's doing something of a tax break. She's calling it a inflation rebate, where working families, I think it's just families, will be getting like $1,000 back. Because because of inflation, sales tax revenue has also like increased 50%. So she's like, let's just take that and then rebate it in a tax rebate. Or you could lower sales taxes,
or just like
or
put it
eliminate
towards some of the
sales
crumbling
taxes.
infrastructure. Like, haven't New York subway system not had an overhaul in like decades at this point?
Yeah. Well, that's what the congestion pricing is meant to do. But her politicking caused the congestion fee to be lowered $6 for cars, at least. I don't know what it is for trucks and other things, but at least as far as the initial video feeds go, the congestion pricing is working.
That's good.
The Lower Manhattan streets are no longer clogged with cars. So
that's amazing.
now that means it's not going to raise billions and billions of dollars. But a lot of progressive coalitions are really pushing for the ending of the stock transfer tax rebate. This is where New York has a tax on stock transfers. It's on the books. We collect it, but then we also rebate all of it.
Oh, what then is the point?
Well, it was a way of not taking it off the books, but also negating it. And it was done in the 90s or 80s. I forget the year, but it was part of the neoliberalization. But it was never taken off the books. We just rebated. So, and I know some progressives during 2012 was not a full rebate, but just half of it. Just rebate half of it.
Yeah.
And that would, because even half of it was enough to like fill all of the state budget gaps at the time, twice over.
Yeah. Seems like a
Because
no-brainer.
it was 12 million, no, 12 billion, easy.
Wow.
Because I know the
Wow.
New York State budget is in the billions, not millions.
Yeah, right.
Because just redoing the SUNY State University online systems,
Mhm.
that's a $3 billion project.
Yeah,
There.
not surprised. Yeah. Well, cool. Well,
All right, we reached
we've
10 o'clock.
the end
You're a
of our
busy
time.
man, and I am running for city council, so I should also
Hey,
make myself
hey.
busy here.
All right.
But I'm also I'm a little overwhelmed with everything I could be doing, but that's why I need to shift more on my manager. But he is renovating his house that he just bought, so he's sort of busy with that. So it's a bit of a
Gotcha.
bind. So maybe things will free up in the next month. Maybe they won't. But I definitely got to get moving by March
For sure.
in a serious way. But I am moving forward with getting the DSA endorsement. And I just became a Dume member of DSA for the first time.
Hey, congrats.
So now that raises the number of orgs I pay dues to 4. And I'm starting to feel burdened by all of the different kinds of deductions I have out of my paycheck. Because I was actually looking at all my pay stubs. And my salary is actually 42 grand, but I only see 32
Jeez.
in my payroll. All of that is taxes that I'm basically paying. I don't pay taxes at the end of the year, and so it's all deducted. It's all stuff taken already.
Taking a health
And the health insurance, which is actually just like 2 or 3 grand, $2,000 or so, and other things. So, and I'm also adding in 100 or so for the buying back my time into the retirement system.
Oh.
So it's basically the dues it's what I would have been paying into the retirement system over the 2 years I was a state worker, but wasn't paying in the before I joined the retirement
that's
system.
cool. They let you do that.
So by buying back my time, I'm getting 2 more years in the retirement system.
There you go.
Without having to work it in the future.
Nice.
And once I'm like 10 years in, although technically I'm already, well, with those 2 years, I'll be at the 5-year minimum threshold. But again, I can't collect any of it until I turn at least 55, I think, to get the minimum payment. So I guess I'll be a state worker till 55, and then I'll go into teaching or something. I don't know. But my plan is at least maybe another 3 or 5 years of this, I suppose. And or maybe if that's how long it takes me to pay off whatever mortgage I have. We'll see.
Cool. Well, exciting stuff anyway coming up. Thanks as always for joining. It was a fun time. I like those Carlin videos.
I got another one, as you saw, which is more about why we're winning and why her audience should be afraid of us.
Why her audience should be afraid of her. Okay.
No, not her, us.
Oh, of us. Man, we didn't really get into it much, but like the Trumpers seem just like so. I don't know, like
They're gonna
would
get
you be
far
taking
too
a
soon,
victory
though.
lap? Like they don't even seem all that happy about it. They just seem still angry and aggrieved, like nothing has changed.
Well, yeah. Well, because it depends on what kind of right wing we're talking about. Some are mad because they're not culturally dominant. They're financially dominant,
True.
economically, but not culturally.
Yeah.
There's that agreement, but that's like the upper middle class. So there's different types of right wingers. We went over this a year ago when I went through like all of the Pew poll data
Sure.
of their political classifications. I like that because it showed that there's like 5 different types of conservatives, all of different economic strata or attitudes. And so they're going to have different reactions to what Trump does or doesn't do, or particularly like how things play out. Because you could say that a lot of them were disappointed in the first Trump term, but just wanted him to have a second term anyway.
Second swing at it.
Or they just simply oppose Democrats do because of their own programming.
Sure.
And they're not really sure that Trump will do right by them, but it's just a possibility. It's hope. It's that they're hopeful, but it's hope he'll do the right thing for them. And sometimes they believe that he did the right thing the first term for them because they were doing better by chance or by happenstance. Because because of the way economic planning works in neoliberalism, you don't see any effect by any policy for 4 to 6 years. So it's sort of a thing that sort of wonks complain about, like, people were saying they're doing good in Trump economy, but it was really the Obama economy. Or the Obama economy was really the Bush economy.
Yeah, right.
And so on and so on. So it's like you need a president or a party to be in charge for a whole decade to really say that they're responsible for anything. But as long as we keep flip-flopping every 4 years, it's just a big fucking mash.
Be able to
and there's no policy consistency. And of course, that just makes capitalism go crazy.
All right. Well, with that, I will say good night to you and see you next time. I look forward to whatever you bring and whatever we discuss.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Good night.
All right. That was Dan Platt of the Albany Green Party. That's going to do it for me tonight. Thanks for everyone who joined. Let's see. Yeah, someone watching on YouTube even. That's cool. Yeah, I think I'm going to try and get into a more regular streaming regiment and start at least doing the Sunday shows again. So that'll be the next one y'all can look out for. Do gaming of some kind. I really liked doing Witcher last time when I couldn't get Breath of the Wild to work. So maybe we'll continue on with that for a little while just because, finally have a fast enough computer to make it work and not be so incredibly laggy. But until next time, have a good night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye from Amanda as well.